to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. I got to tell you something, people. I'm very excited to have this gentleman on my show today. He was recently performing in my area at the Landis Theater in Vineland, which is about an hour away from me. But unfortunately, I was booked for a stand-up gig, so I couldn't go because I wanted to make money instead of spending money to go to a concert. But he's legendary, man. And I read something. He was once compared to a mixture of James Dean and Don Johnson from Miami Vice. And to me, that's cool. And my guest, you know him from his solo career, you know him from Rainbow, you know him from MSG, you know him from Alcatrazz, the list goes on, and my guest is Graham Bonnet. How you doing, Graham?
I'm doing okay. Working hard and hardly working, whatever the phrase is, you know. Yeah, I'm doing all right, doing very well, and I'm very pleased the way things are going with the band. I think we're playing better than ever. I'm singing better than ever. You know, I'm really watching, you know, now I'm getting older. I'm thinking about how I used to sing back then, you know, when I was 30 years old. And I've trained my voice to be the same as it was, you know, instead of just going on and just singing any old where. I listened to what I did originally and the breathing I did, where the voice was coming from. Was it coming from my chest? Was it coming from my throat? Was it coming from my face area, you know? I mean, that sounds a little bit stupid, but it's really something that's helped me a lot. No. And, you know, the voice is a hard instrument to play. To play the guitar without even looking at it, you know what I mean?
I was going to say, how do you, now that you are older, when you do a show, okay, because you had a tour, you played music from all your groups, solo, Alcatrazz, everything. Is it harder when you get done to have your voice recover? Because I would think, as you said, you have such a great voice that as you get older, like anything, I mean, I try to get up sometimes and my back hurts. You know, when I was young, I didn't. How do you recoup your voice? I mean, when you get done the show, are you feeling your voice feels strong, or do you sit there and go, I got to let it rest because I have a show tomorrow?
No, I mean, when I come off stage, I still have a speaking voice. And if I can still speak, then I know that I've used my voice properly and not harmed it in any way. Because it's so easy to abuse yourself, like, you know, doing all that stuff. You know, silly notes and whatever. So I try to think, you know, you don't have to do that. As I said, I'm thinking about my breathing, the way the notes come out, and I see that note in my head, and I know if I can hit it, I have to take a really deep breath, you know, to make sure the lungs are pushing that note out. So I've been very, very careful and not drinking too much coffee a day and all that kind of thing. And then if I can speak, as I said, after the show, I know I did it properly. I didn't just sing for the sake of singing and messing it up by showing off, by singing, you know, screaming, let's say, you know. So I've been very lucky. And what happened was actually about, I don't know, it must be about 10 years ago. I went to my throat specialist and he said, your right vocal cord has collapsed. And he said it needs pumping up again, basically, you know. So I said, oh, really? So he injected it, I know it was cortisone or something. And as I said, this was like 10 years ago. And he said, try singing now. And I said, oh, my God. I said, I sound just the way I used to, you know. And I said, well, near enough, you know what I mean? And he said, yeah, you're going to be better now. He said, you'll still have that scarring a little bit on your right vocal cord, but it's not going to affect your singing voice. So, and it's helped 100%, you know. So, you know, we've been doing shows for the past, how long we've been out? A couple of weeks. So we've just got back, and I tell you, on every show we've done, I get these people coming back to me and going, how do you sing the same as you used? You know, I get that. I'm not sure. This is the absolute truth. And there have been recordings about latest, you know, stuff, you know, people film all the time, clothes on their phones, and it sounds awful, I know. But it's, they come backstage, I mean, you know, afterwards, a meet and greet thing, and they just say, how do you do it? How do you do it? I said, I don't know. I've just been very, very lucky.
Okay.
And I think that's the way you're built, you know.
I want to ask you just brought something up, but I want to know from an artist viewpoint, from a performer, and be honest with me, I come from a generation where, you know, before the concert, you know, the Spectrum in Philadelphia, people throwing frisbees, lighting your lighter, you know, smoking pot, everyone going crazy. Now everyone's filming. As a performer, when you're sitting there and you're on stage and you're kicking ass and you're having a great show and you see some people with their phones, to me, they're not even watching the concert. They're just like sitting like idiots. What goes through your mind? Does it piss you off, or you like let them go? Because as you said, the quality of sound isn't going to be right. There's going to be someone behind going. Rah, 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 rah. So as a performer, what's your view on that?
That's a freaking problem, because especially in Japan, well, we see concerts from Japan and they love to sing with you. And if they got the phone, you hear all this. I'm going, holy crap, I'm so out of tune. And Bethany says to me, like, that's not you, that's them. It's the person with the phone that's singing with you, And it does sort of, when I see things, I never really watch those things, but if it's being recorded properly, then I'm okay. If it's, proper kind of, setup. But from a phone, it sounds bloody awful most of the time. And the band sounds terrible. It sounds like we're all in a different fucking key or whatever, It's weird. But it doesn't really put me off. I expect it. It's part of the bloody job now. But I know that some performers, I think it was, who was it? I think it was Ted Nugent. I think it was him who said, no phones. Please leave your phone at the door if you're going to come see me. I mean, this is a while ago when, those phones came up with a fucking camera and, I mean, everybody's doing it, You see people in restaurants, as soon as they sit down, the fucking phone comes out. They're not talking to each other. Things like that. It's a different world now, you have a good idea of saying no phones.
Well, you said about the phones in the restaurants. That reminds me when I was younger, or when I was, doing comedy on the road, you'd travel by yourself a lot. Yeah. And you'd go into a diner, or you know how it is, you're on the road, and this was years ago, there'd be a couple at the table, both reading a newspaper. And I go, why are you even going out to dinner if you could just sit at home, order in? I never got that.
And that's the way it is now. That phone is now the newspaper. It's the National Enquirer, basically. All the Facebook bullshit, it's all fake crap. And I'm addicted to it sometimes, But Bethany, when like this morning, I wake up and I go, Bethany, the phone is right there, and she's playing games. She does all those puzzle games.
It's funny. I woke up. Whenever I wake up in the morning, I turn over, and my wife is playing Words with Friends, and she's sitting there, and I'm like, it's 6, like she's getting up, but I look, I'm like, what? How can you play this early? So that's just exactly it. You just had a nice run.
It's become, it's an addiction. And Bethany says to me, you use the phone more than I do. I said, oh, fucking, I don't. She said, yeah, you're looking at pornography and like, what the fuck are you talking? She went to look at pornography, all kinds of stuff that, sometimes those things pop up and you go, what is this? I said, no, I wasn't looking at that. But once you've looked at something or just flicked past it, scroll past something that is naughty, and you stop on and go, what the fuck? You get lots of that coming back at you. You know what I mean?
So,
and it gives you.
You were just on tour, and I wanted to ask you. I know you played near me, and you played on the East Coast. And how do you put your? I want to get to your career, but before we do, how do you put your set list together? Because you've had such a long career and different bands. And I know when you go to the UK, you're going to play Assault Attack. I believe the album in entirety. But like when you did this last tour, how do you figure your set list out? I mean, there's certain songs that people will want to hear, but how do you figure it out? Because you have such a vast catalog to choose from.
Yeah, I know it's something that I sometimes have to argue with my band, because I said, but I don't like that one, from this area, I play with Chris in Pelletier. Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do this. It's usually what we do is like 4 or 5 Rainbow tunes, because I was in Rainbow for a couple of years, whatever. And of course, Alcatrazz, my band then, and also my solo stuff that I did in England, So I do a bit of everything, trying to please the crowd. And what I'm going to be doing with Jolene Turner soon, we're doing some shows together, me and him. And we're going to do, the songs we recorded on Rainbow albums, our own separate, songs, from different albums, whatever. And also adding a couple of Ronnie's things. So we might, yesterday, it was suggested that we should probably, after we'd done the show with Joe, probably just keep a couple of Ronnie's songs in the set, as a sort of tribute to him. Whatever, you know what I mean. because he was the original singer for Rainbow, and kind of nice, sort of, you know. But some of the songs they've chosen for me to sing, I'm not particularly fond of, that are Ronnie's songs. There are two songs I really like, Stargazer and Catch the Rainbow were my two favourite songs to sing when I was in Rainbow, when we did a couple of Ronnie's tunes. But they've chosen two songs. I won't say what they are because I'll probably get myself in deep shit or something. But I don't like them that much. You know, they're not as dynamic as the ones I'd like to sing. I love Stargazer and Catch the Rainbow. I really think they're good performing songs. In fact, on the last show I did in Castle Donington with Rainbow was those two songs. I remember my mum and dad coming up to me after the show. I mean, that was a fucking big day, that was. And saying, I love that one about the rainbow, Catch the Rainbow. I said, yeah, I like that one too. And Stargazer, you know. There were two songs that my mum and dad loved, and so did I. I love singing them. It's a performance, you know. It's not all the same, you know, not all the same. I can't explain it, not all in the same area. You know, the songs change a little bit, which makes it more interesting for me. You know, but you've got to change the voice slightly. You've got to sing softer. You've got to sing somewhere in between. You've got to sing strong. Now you've got to sing high. You know, it's all those little elements of the voice that I have to think about now because we're doing Ronnie's songs. You know, it's just, I don't sing anything like Ronnie, you know. I mean, there was a point, when I got offered the job, I went to buy the Rainbow albums because I didn't know who they were. And they sort of called up for me to audition when they were recording in Switzerland. And so I went out and got the albums, you know, on vinyl back then, and I listened to Rainbow, and I thought, well, I don't think I'm right for this, you know, I don't sound like that, I don't do that, you know. And so what happened was I learned one song for the audition, and that was Mistreated, that tune. So I did that. That was my audition piece, and that's when I got the job. But I didn't think I was right for the band at all because I was doing all solo stuff on my own. And I never really wanted to be in the band, to be honest with you. I wanted to do what I was doing by myself. So, you know, I could advance my own career and play whatever I wanted to do, sing whatever kind of music I wanted to do. I never thought, oh, I'm going to be a heavy metal singer, baby. No, I like singing and singing different kinds of songs in different genres, you know.
Now, when did you find out that you had such a good voice? Was it at a very young age? I mean, I always wonder how, you know, because like we all take chorus in elementary school, and there's some people that are good, and there's some people that just completely suck. I was one of them. I can't sing, but do you find some people that you know, like, how did you know that you had a good voice, and how did you end up training? How did you know you had a good voice and that you could make a career out of this?
Well, I didn't know I guess I did. I knew I had a good voice because I remember when I was, on the school bus, I'd be, I don't know how old I was, probably 11 or something, about 11 or 12, maybe, no, probably 10 or 11. And there was a song out by Paul Anka called Diana, you know, which was a big hit in England. It was like a #1 song. And I used to sing this song all the time. And in the house, you know, my mum and, you know, whatever, her friends sometimes. And when I got onto the bus, some of the parents would be there sitting with their kids. And they say, hey, Graham, why don't you sing this Diana? And I go, yeah? So I get up, go to the front of the bus. You know, we're upstairs in the upstairs part of the double-decker. And I stand at the front, put my arms on the, you know, on the railing behind me and sing Diana. And they go, oh. So people were listening to me even when I was a young age. I never, ever in a million years thought I would do it as a so-called job, you know, at all. I always thought there was something special about people like Elvis or Cliff Richard in England or the Shadows or, you know, Paul Anka, who was, you know, one of my influences, I guess. And, you know, Buddy Holly, oh God, I mean, I could go through a whole list. Little Richard. There was something special about them that I didn't have until I realized that people were actually going, God, that's pretty good, you know. Where's that voice come from such a little boy?
So you're 11 or 12. So now tell me how, because I know you end up, you know, how do you start getting recognized? And I know I want to talk about the marbles, but before that, I believe you did some work on your own. How did you start getting recognized? Because the industry was completely different back then. It wasn't like now you can make a tape on a iPhone and put it on YouTube and get a million hits, and people go, "Oh, this person's the best." But how did you start? How did you start getting your career into gear? When did you start having a career?
Okay, yeah, I was 14 or something, and I played in a dance band when I was 14, playing guitar and singing all these kind of standards. She gets too hungry for dinner at 8. Hey, where you from? All that kind of stuff, and that's kind of where, and the band I played with, it was a trio actually, and the people I played with would be traveling around England playing at different working men's clubs. So that's how I sort of got started. But sometimes I was too young to go into the place where there was alcohol being sold, so I couldn't do the gig because I was 14. I wasn't 15. You had to be 15 to go into a place where booze was being sold. Not you couldn't drink it, but it was there. So that's kind of how I started, and doing concerts with the Boy Scouts, Boy Scouts Christmas concerts, things like that. And also singing at school on our concerts at school. My guitar and the guy playing a snare drum. My friend Andy, snare drum with brushes. We used to do all those early 1950s songs. And so it's kind of all over the place, but I was always singing somewhere, especially if I wasn't singing on a stage. I was singing in my bedroom at home, constantly. And my mum, one day, she got really mad at one of our neighbours, and she said, "Do you know what that woman, Mrs. Thingybob, said about you?" She said, "He doesn't sing, he just shouts." I have a loud voice, in other words. I said, "I'm not shouting, Mum." She says, "I know you're not. You can hear by my voice now. I speak very loudly, and that's just, I get told off that, keep your voice. Don't say that about that. I didn't say anything, I have to really watch my language sometimes, But it's just the way I'm built, I'm lucky to have, a good lung capacity and a good sound box, that's just the way it is. And the way your head's shaped as well has a lot to do with singing, Here, this all vibrates, it's like a guitar, But it was just something that eventually people would say, is Graham going to play anywhere? He's going to come to the Working Men's Club, da. Then in my hometown, I would have, there was a variety show that used to be every weekend in England, in my hometown, this theatre in Skegness where I was born. And they would have a variety show, and I was always asked to do the variety show at the end of the week, Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday. Just me and my guitar, and you say, "Graham and his electric guitar," that was and I was still like 2 or 3 songs to an audience of old age pensioners or something, But that's, the people that were running the show, they liked the way I sang, and they would sing with me sometimes. They used to say to me, "Oh, Graham, you've got a wonderful voice. Are you going to do this as a job one day?" I said, "No, I don't think so. I don't know what I'm going to do."
Right.
Well, I was going to playing guitar at that time,
Now, tell me about the marbles, because it's when you think about it, how you were involved with the Bee Gees, and then you end up becoming a metal, this one thing. Tell me about the marbles and how you got involved with the Bee Gees, because it's a pretty fascinating story.
Well, my cousin Trevor Gordon lived in Australia, where the Bee Gees lived, and in 1960 something or other, and what happened was my cousin Trevor made records with the Bee Gees. His name was Trevor Gordon, and he used to send me over these 45s from Australia to my house in England. And he would say to me, "You'd like these records that I've done with this band called the Bee Gees." He said, "They're like the Beatles, but listen to this." I mean, those kids, they'd be 12 or 13 or something when these records were made. But it was Trevor Gordon and the Bee Gees. So Trevor was the lead guitar player, one of the lead vocals, along with Robin and Barry, And so these records came over, and then a few years later, the Bee Gees arrived in London, and Well, Trevor knew all about it, but we never got in touch with them because we didn't know where they were, for one thing. And Trevor and I, my cousin, were playing. We had a five-piece band, and we were playing in a club called the Revolution Club in London, in the West End. And after we finished playing, this guy comes up to Trevor and says to him, "Hey, Trevor, remember me?" He was an Australian guy who used to be the Bee Gees manager in Australia. And he said, "Well, you know who'd like to meet you and say hello to you again?" I'm doing an Australian accent now, fucking hell. Sorry about that. I'm acting now, you know. He said, "Well, look, I've got Barry's number here, Barry Gibb's number." And Trevor said, "Oh, absolutely, I've been trying to find out where they are, you know." So Trevor called up Barry, and he went over to see him. We were living in Wembley Park at the time in London, and Barry was in like the West End or West 2 something, a very nice place anyway. And so Trevor went over to meet Barry and the other guys, Robin and Morris, and he came back home to the five, the other guys in our band, and he said to me, "Barry and the guys would like to meet you, Graham, because they want to do some work with me again, Trevor Gordon and the Bee Gees, so to speak. But I told them that you sang as well." He said, "Can you come over there with me tomorrow or the next day, whatever?" So I went over with my cousin Trevor to Barry's house, and the house was like full of people. Like all the Bee Gees were, the five of them went at that time, because they had a drummer and a guitar player, and we were just sitting on the couches, and Robert Stigwood was there, the manager of the Bee Gees, so we sit down, and Trevor started singing. He said, "Well, Graham, do you want to sing with us? We'll sing some." I was just watching my cousin sing with the Bee Gees. That was it. I thought, oh, this is good fun, isn't it? And he says, "Well, why don't you sing something, with us?" And I said, "Well, what?" "Anything." So we started singing like Beach Boys tunes, Stevie Wonder songs, the Beatles, of course, all that kind of thing. And Robert Stigwood happened to be in the room when I was singing with these guys and my cousin. And Stigwood comes in, he said to Barry, he says, "Barry, do you have a song for these boys?" He said, "No, I don't, but I can write one." And suddenly Barry was in there. He said to me, "You've got a freak voice." I remember him saying that. He said, "I don't mean that in a horrible way." He said, "But your voice is fucking freaky. What the fuck?" And I mean, it sounds like I'm making this up, but he said that because I was kind of very proud of it. "Oh, I've got a freak voice. I'm something special, in other words, So he said that to me, and so he had this tune which was in 3/4 time, and we went into a studio in London like a couple of days later, and Barry had this tune. He hummed it to me and Trevor, and he said, "Well, I've got no words, but it goes like this." And so he got his guitar out and played it to us. And I was going da 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 da. It was called Only One Woman eventually. Anyway, the melody was sort of very straight and didn't really do anything. The verse was the same as the chorus. And when it came to the chorus, Trevor said to Barry, "I think you should change the melody there. I think Graham should go up there to a higher note." And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, Graham, if you went to like a C sharp, Graham, okay, above top C." And I said, "Well, how do you mean, Trevor? Just play what you mean." He said, "Well, I can't see. I'll sing an octave lower." Okay. I said, "Oh, I see what you mean." Because the original tune, have you heard that song, by the way?
No, I have not.
You've got to, there's the Marbles videos are all over the fucking place, on YouTube. And because we had lots of videos together, me and him, So he had this song, which was, the melody was this, da 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 da. Da 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 da. It was like that, and Trevor said, "No, Graham should go da 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 da." Oh, so suddenly there was this high note in there, and Barry said, "I'll write some words for that." And a few days later, we recorded it, and the song got to number 3 in England and sort of number 1 in Europe, but was never released in America, which was a fucking shame, because it would have been perfect.
Yeah. Now, what happened to the Marbles?
Well, we did two songs. The first one was called Only One Woman. The second record we made with Barry that Barry wrote, I should say, was a song called "The Walls Fell Down," and that did really well. That got to #9 in England. The first one, Only One Woman, went to #3, and in Europe it was like #1 here and there and everywhere. And after those two songs, after we'd done that, I thought, well, what's going to happen? Trevor, at this point, my cousin, realized he wasn't that important. He thought, well, I'm just playing guitar and doing harmony, you know. I'm not being the guy who's singing the lead. So what happened with us, we did like a B-side. And Trevor would always have the B-side to sing, which made me feel like really weird. It was like, well, Trevor can do the B-side, you know. And he felt, you know, we went to school together, we grew up together, we sang in the playground together with our guitars, you know, me and him. And he felt a little bit, you know, down about that because he didn't have the lead vocal. And he said to me, he said, well, Graham, I can't sing like you, you know. Trevor had a very sweet voice, you know, and he wasn't loud, if you will. He wasn't as demonstrative as me, I suppose. He wasn't showing up as much as I did. And that was me, and I guess that still is. And, well, it was decided by Robert Stigwood. He wanted me to be like a Tom Jones thing. He wanted me to be like Tom Jones, you know, playing in Vegas and all that stuff with a bow tie, you know, and everything like that. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like Tom Jones. So anyway, me and Morris Gibb, we did a few recordings together. I did some solo stuff that really didn't do anything because it's no longer the Marbles. It's just me, Graham Bonnet, ex-Marble person. And so we recorded, what's that fucking song called? One song recorded was called Trying to Say Goodbye, which Neil Sedaka wrote. And the other one was, I forgot what the other one was called. But the other one was a Bee Gees song, which I did loads of harmony on, I remember doing. And the other one was this Neil Sedaka song called Trying to Say Goodbye. And, you know, I put that down. And Neil Sedaka was actually playing the Talk of the Town in London. He was doing shows there, concerts, you know. And Morris was producing me, Morris Gibb, and he invited Neil Sedaka along. I thought, oh, fucking hell. Bloody Neil Sedaka's coming to the freaking studio, and I'm singing his bloody song. You know, let's try and say that. And the arranger, Graham, another Graham Prescott, when Neil Sedaka comes through the door and goes, I'm standing at the microphone, you know, singing this song, and the door opens, and this little head peeks around, he goes, is Maurice here? Maurice, not Morris. Is Maurice here? I said, Mr. Sedaka. He said, yeah, this is my wife, Liba. And Liba comes in. And I said, yeah, Morris is in the control room, you know. And Graham said to Morris while sitting behind the desk, he says, that's fucked him up for the day now. Neil Sedaka's going to, he won't be able to sing the bloody thing at all. But Neil Sedaka sat there, he listened to me, and he was going like this. And that made my freaking day.
I can imagine. That's awesome. Now, earlier you said when you got the audition for Rainbow, you had to go buy the albums. How did that audition come about? Like, if you didn't know who they were, how did they find you?
Well, because of that song, because the first song that Barry wrote for me and my cousin, the one that's called Only One Woman, they were looking for a singer for the band. They were auditioning singers in Switzerland, on the border of France, Switzerland, whatever it was, somewhere in between Switzerland and France, in this chateau place, and they were auditioning singers. And they'd auditioned, I heard 80 people, 80 guys, for this part to be the new singer, taking over from Ronnie Dio. And what they were doing one night, Cozy Powell gets out his tape machine and puts on all these different songs, and he said, let's play Spot the Tune. And up comes my song that I sang with my cousin, Only One Woman. And Richie said, where is this guy now? Where is he now? He said, well, he's working with, he's working not with Mickey Moody, but he's working with the same people that managed Mickey Moody, the guitar player, from Whitesnake. And Roger Glover said, well, I can get in touch with him because I'm working with Mickey Moody. Roger Glover was producing some Whitesnake demos or whatever at the time, as well as looking for a singer for Rainbow. And so Roger called me up and said, would you mind coming over to meet Rainbow, Richie and Cozy and Don Airy, you know. And I said, well, really? So anyway, as I said, I bought the records of early Rainbow stuff, and I didn't think I was right. You know, and I said to my manager, I don't sing like this. I don't do this kind of music, you know. And he said, well, Graham, I think it'd be a good move for you to go over there and audition for them. So I did, and did this song Mistreated, and that was the whole story, because I thought, I'm going to fuck this up, you know. I'm going to croak and go, you know, nothing's going to come out. And so when I got the audition, I go into this room, this big room with a balcony and the whole thing, and a big drum set up, and Cozy Powell sitting there, and fucking Marshall stacks. I'm like, bloody hell. And they're playing, and it's like, God, it's like being in church or something. It's like, it's great noise coming out. And I'd learned this song, this Mistreated song, and I thought, well, what I'll do, there was a microphone there waiting for me. What I'll do, I won't sing on microphone. I'll sing off microphone. So if I do fuck up, they won't hear it. Anyway, I sang this bloody thing. I sang it, and after the song was over, there was complete silence. And then I saw them looking at each other and started laughing. I thought, oh, fuck, I messed it up, didn't I? You know. And they said, Graham, yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. But, you know, you weren't on microphone. The microphone's over there, you know. And I said, well, I've got a very loud voice, you know. But it was, yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't want to sing on mic because I thought I might mess up, come in at the wrong time or something. So, no, we can hear you. That's not normal, you know. That doesn't happen. So what happened was, they said, oh, well, let's do it again. And again, I didn't get it on the microphone. I'd say it, you know, acoustically, so to speak. And they started laughing again. Said, okay, and Don Arias says, we'll do it again, Graham, but this time use the fucking microphone, okay? So I got on the microphone, and it was, you know, could hear it everywhere, in the house, in the chateau. And as I was singing it on mic, up on the balcony around this room, all these girls came out, and some guys. It was the crew with their girlfriends, and they all leaned on the thing, the fence around the balcony, and they were looking now and going, yeah, that's him. And they were all going, that's the guy, you know, this is the guy for the job. And that's how I got the job. It was kind of scary because I didn't know if I was singing in the right way, or, you know, I didn't know. I just sang like me. Nothing different. I wasn't going or anything.
Well, you also, but the also thing is, you didn't have that metal look. Like, you were a very stylish guy. So what was that like? I mean, because you take him, Dio's like 5'2", and he's got the long hair, and he's wearing, yeah. So what was it like for that? Like, what did the fans think? Like, wait a second, who's this guy who's dressed like he's in GQ coming up? You know, with, you know, what was that? What was their reaction? What was people's reaction in the industry?
I know. Yeah. I mean, it was, well, you know, that's the way I dress, and I still do. I still have the same kind of, you know, I'm very much into 1950s, you know, music, you know, doo-wop and, you know, the Platters and, you know, Little Richard and all that kind of thing. I was very much into that stuff, and R&B, pure old R&B songs, you know. And so that was the way I dressed. That's the way I have my hair. That's the way it is. And I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to change because of that. And so we went on the road. I remember the first day getting on the tour bus thinking, oh, fuck, this is going to be hard because I've never done anything like this before. And there was a guy outside the bus that I guess he was a Rainbow fan. And he said to me, oh, are you the tour manager? I said, no. Because I had this jacket on and tie or whatever the fuck. And I said, no, I'm the singer. He says, what? Yeah. Yeah. So it was, at first I thought, people aren't going to take me seriously, are they? And some nights, well, the very first night we played, I remember this, people were going, Ronnie, Ronnie, we want Ronnie, before I'd done anything, And after I sang a couple of songs, it kind of quietened down a bit. Then at the front, I saw these guys, give me the finger, and there's about 4 or 5 of them. And Richie, he likes a song called Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? The old Sherelle song, which I'd recorded on one of my solo albums, which is another track that Richie liked as well. And I looked at him and said, Will you still love me tomorrow? And yeah. He started playing the D chord, ready for the verse. And I went down stage to where these guys were sitting, these 5 guys. I sat on the edge of the stage, and I said, tonight you're mine completely. You give your love. And I sang this song romantically to these guys. Tonight the light of love is in your eyes, and all that. And they went, I didn't know what to do. And they went, yeah, okay. And they changed their mind about this guy with short hair.
Yeah, it's so funny. Now, what was your working relationship with Richie? Did you guys get along?
Yeah, always. But the only thing he didn't like was my fucking haircut, which was stupid. But we got along fine because, some of the other guys were a bit iffy with Richie. They didn't like his attitude sometimes because he wasn't very open, a friendly, friend to some people, and argued sometimes with the band members, I seem to think. But I never argued with him about anything, I don't think. But the only thing that did bug me was the thing about the hair, because I think later on, you probably know that story about the haircut, do you?
No, tell me about the haircut.
Oh, the haircut. Well, we're on tour, and, Richie said to me, he said, if you just, before we even went anywhere, we'd done a few gigs, and I was, my hair started to grow a bit. When you have short hair, you have to have it, keep it trimmed, you have to keep it short, basically, but look neat and not all over the place. So, one afternoon, I think we were in Edinburgh, and I went out with my ex-wife, and we were shopping in Edinburgh, and we had a gig that night, and my hair was a little scruffy, and I thought, oh, fuck, I need the back of my neck shaving and just, trim it up a bit, so I can just, do this, comb it back, And so I got my hair cut. I saw a barber, I said, I'm going to go in there, I'll see you later at the summer, one of the shops, and in Edinburgh. So I got my hair cut. And that night we had a gig. So the band, we never saw each other during the day. We all stayed in our rooms or did our own thing. We weren't all ganging around and walking down the street like with the Beatles or something. And so the only time Richie saw me was when I came on stage with my haircut. And he looked across. He went, he lost it. He just, what? And he walks behind the Marshall stack, and he stayed there for about 3 songs. He played behind there, and I thought, what the fuck is going on? What's the matter with him? So anyway, the night went on. He did come back on stage, and we got through the night, with my haircut. And next day, there was a call from Richie. Can you all come to my room? I just want to straighten something out. So we all went to Richie's room in the hotel, and he's sitting there waiting for us, and we all went and went, what's up? What's up? And Cody goes, well, come on, folks, what's up? I said, well, it's Graham. What? What do you mean? It's his hair. Laughter all around, right? They'll go, what the fuck? And they all went crazy on me. What the fuck are you talking about? No, it's not. That's him. That's who he is. He's not going to have, the thing. That's why I didn't think I was right for the band, because of that one thing. Well, the hair thingy. I used to have long hair when I was in my hippie, years ago. And so they all laughed and just guffawed, fucking hell. And it was said, no more was said about it. But, every time, later when I was on the road for a while, I remember sitting with my ex-wife and we're in the same restaurant as Richie. And my hair was getting long again. And he was going, and I'm going, oh, I'm going to get my hair cut today.
Now, what made you leave Rainbow?
It was, well, I tell you what, we were rehearsing in Copenhagen for the next album after the Down to Earth album. And so we had this room, this rehearsal room, where we were supposed to be writing songs, you know. So there was Don Airy, Roger, and our new drummer, because Cozy had gone at this point. That was one of the reasons it wasn't the same anymore without Cozy, you know. And in fact, when Don said to me, I'm going to leave the band, I sort of went, why? He said, well, Cozy's not here, you know. It's not the same, is it? I said, no, it's not. Because we were, you know, very close, me, Don, and Cozy. And always will be, you know, my heart. I miss him, Cozy, bless him. And it was, he said, I'm going to go home, Graham. I said, you are? I said, yeah, we're not doing anything. Because we'd be in the rehearsal room. Richie wouldn't be there. His pedal board was down there, I remember that. And he'd come in once in a while and go, you do something, and then go, I'm going shopping. Oh, okay, in Copenhagen. So we look at each other and go, what's going to happen? I thought the band was fucked. I thought that was it. That was the end of the thing. But then Roger said, I've got a song. He said, I've got a song from Russ Ballard, the guy who wrote Since You've Been Gone, you know. And he played it to me. He said, well, we should start doing this, Graham, because we've got nothing else. We have no songs whatsoever. And we've been there for a couple of weeks, just looking at each other like, okay, what we're going to do? What kind of music we're going to do now? And this song comes up called I Surrender. And Roger said to me, well, let's go in the studio and put down the backing vocals. We'll start on this and then we can finish it later. So I went in there and did some backing vocals to this song called I Surrender. And, well, that was that for a bit. And then we go back into the, you know, the rehearsal room to get on with writing something. And it was still the same. And I just looked at Don. I said, I'm going to go home. We're not doing anything. So I flew home to LA and I left the band, basically. And I got a call from Bruce Payne, the manager, saying, when are you coming back, Graham? I said, I don't want to because nothing's happening. I said, we're not doing anything. We're not making any new songs. The only song we have is the one that Russ wrote, you know, Russ Ballard. He said, yeah, I know, but how about if we get another singer in who wants to sing the tracks you don't like and you sing the tracks you do like? I said, no, I don't be with another singer. I want to be the singer, and that's it, you know, not another guy. It seems strange. I said, we're not the Everly Brothers, you know, what is this? And so, to me, it didn't seem right, me having to sing with somebody else. It just seemed wrong. Well, on the album, anyway. I don't know if that was going to happen live, but he suggested, another singer should come in. And that's where Joe Lynn came in, Joe Lynn Turner. And he took over from me, basically. And I think what Richie wanted was the band to sound more like Foreigner or Toto, in that sort of somewhere in between. Not like, you know, not heavy, but sort of like more friendly, radio friendly. Because of Since You've Been Gone. That song, you know, really brought Rainbow to the fore. It really did, you know. I'm not saying it because it was me, but I think, you know, Russ Ballard wrote. I wrote to Russ. I spoke to him about 2 days ago, actually. I you know, saying that I wrote to Russ to say that if it wasn't for you, Rainbow would still be in the fucking dark, you know. Because nobody knew who Rainbow was. I didn't know, you know. I knew who Deep Purple was.
Right.
I know that Rainbow was a branch off of Deep Purple. And so that was that. And I just said, I don't want to do it anymore. I said, Cozy's gone. He's going to play with, at that time, I think it was Whitesnake, I'm not sure. And he had something happening with Jack Bruce from Cream. And he had a load of stuff going on for him, which he could choose and probably get paid very well for. But he was very, you know, everybody wanted Cozy Powell to play drums on their tracks, you know, because of who he is, who he was, who he is. You know, and so that was it. I just went home and I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what I was going to do next. So I did a couple of commercials in England, flew back to England to do some commercials. And I started doing stuff, you know, solo stuff on my own. And then I ended up, God, it's just a long story, this. I ended up I've got to find a manager. I've got to find somebody who's a manager. So some of my friends had this idea about this guy called Andy Truman, who managed Jethro Tull, the Bay City Rollers, Robert Palmer, but he didn't do it anymore. He wasn't interested in managing. But he knows who you are, Graham. He's from England, so he'd like to meet you. So Andy Truman became my manager, and we decided we should put a band together around me, around the stuff I've done with Rainbow kind of thing. And I said, okay. So we tried to put together a band really quickly because he got a record deal already, just saying that it was me was in the band, being the ex-singer of Rainbow, and that we got a deal with a record company. He said, we've got to write something quickly and get a band together. He said, we've got to choose people who are probably, sort of well-known, but not necessarily really famous. And so we had Jan Uvina, who was with Alice Cooper, to play drums. And then so we got him. And so we thought we needed a bass player and a keyboard player next. So there was this little ad in a music paper saying, bass player and keyboard player from a band called New England. They had a small hit called Don't Ever Want to Lose You. And they came along, and we went into my garage where I had my stuff set up. And I started playing whatever, any old thing, And after I played with them, I said, I don't know about this. And I went back to my manager and said, they're not good enough, Andy. They're just not very good. I've been used to playing with bloody Roger Glover and Don Airey, not bloody these guys who really have no musical knowledge whatsoever, And he said, well, we've got to have them in the band. So, okay. Because they had this hit. All right. So now we're going to go, we need a guitar player. We need someone who plays like Richie Blackmore. Okay. That's going to be very hard, because that's what I wanted, was a band like Rainbow. That same setup, same. And then one day, some guy in a store said to our so-called bassist, I know a person is perfect for the band. I said, he's a big, big Richie Blackmore fan and a big Rainbow fan. It was, in fact, at your concert in where was it? In Stockholm, I think, in Stockholm. Anyway, he was up in a tree, apparently, this Yngwie Malmsteen. And I got the telephone number from this guy, and I called up Yngwie, and I said, would you come and rehearse with us? We're trying to put a band together. And he said, oh, you're Graham. Are you really Graham Bonnet? I said, yeah. He said, oh my God. I said, yes, I know. I am. I'm your God. And so, anyway, long story short, or a short story longer, is he came along, but I wanted him to play something that wasn't, wasn't that. So I asked him if he could learn a song called SOS, which is a Russ Ballard song that I did on a solo album. So he learned that, and so I wanted to hear him play like he played. I didn't want to hear necessarily Richard Blackmore rip-off things or anything like that. And so he came along, he played that like perfect. I said, oh, that's fucking good. That's good, man. He was like 18 years old or 19. And then he said, well, can we do some songs I know from Rainbow? I said, sure. So we did, I can't remember exactly what we did, but he played some of the songs from the Down to Earth album with me and the band. And I was just like blown away. Like, fucking hell, this guy is amazing. And he still is, And if it wasn't for him, I don't think Alcatrazz would have done as well as they did at first. Because after he wasn't there, then it went, took a dive, So that's kind of how we put the band together. But I was always like, well, Yngwie always used to say, we need a good keyboard player and bass player. So I know. We had a great show with Jan. He was a really good player. And, it was all over the place. It was a bit of a struggle to put the band together to actually record an album. So I played some bass on a couple of tracks, and Yngwie played some bass on some other tracks, So it wasn't this so-called bass player at all.
What was the scene like back then? Like, because it was metal, and that was like in the 80s, and it was like, when it was blowing up. What was it like for you guys? Because it was, people. I try to explain to people how, like I'm an '80s guy. You know, I graduated high school in '82, college in '86. I grew up with all.
Yeah.
I got so much from music. But what was it like with Alcatrazz when you guys were playing? I know you guys ended up being huge in Japan. I mean, what was it like? Was it just because everyone just loved metal then, or what do you think that they loved about Alcatrazz?
Well, I think they expected to see Rainbow Part 2, which was basically what I was going for anyway. But, you know, we played in Japan and we got a gold album there, you know. It was like, oh, bloody hell. But Japan, they just love, well, still, we go there like every year with this band, you know, Ocelot. And it was just, people wanted to see us. We played quite a lot of gigs with Ingve playing. We opened up for Ted Nugent. We opened up for, let's see, who else we fucking opened up for? Oh, quite a few. God, I can't think now. But Ted Nugent was one. I remember that very well because I remember when we first played with Ted, the first gig we did, he came back to our dressing room and he looked at me and said, great man, fucking great. And then he pointed to Ingve and he said, Ingve. And he said, don't get rid of this guy. We said, no, we don't intend to. But of course, Ingve could see that he was eventually, people were just amazed by the way he stood there and how he's playing, you know. So I thought, well, he's going to go. And of course he did, eventually.
Now, how did you end up in between? How did you end up with MSG? How did that come about?
That was basically another pure fluke. I went to see Michael play with Cozy was in the band. Cozy Powell was playing with Michael. So I went to, I think it was FM station or something in LA, and I went to see them because Cozy invited me. Hello, Cozy invited me, and I watched the band. Then after the show, there was another band playing, and Cozy came up. I was on the balcony of this gig, and he came up to me and said, "What do you think of the band, Graham?" I said, "That's fucking great." I said, "Michael, what a great player." I said, "The songs were really good. I love it. You know, it's fantastic." And he said, "Yeah, I like the band too." He said, "Would you like to be in it?" I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, you know, be in the band with me and Michael and Chris." Well, I don't know. What you got Gary Barron? It's good. It's great. Really good. What are you talking about? He said, "Well, Michael and I want you." So that was it. It was as stupid as that. So Gary left. I don't know how he left or why or if there's any, you know, confrontation. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You know. But Gary left and went on his own way. You know, to do whatever Gary went to do after that. And then I started writing tunes with the band, with Cozy and Michael, and at that time it was Chris Glenn was playing bass, so that was the band lineup. And then we had a keyboard player that came in once in a while, but it wasn't really part of the band. So it's basically us four getting that together, and you know, the album was made called Assault Attack, and that was kind of good. But during the rehearsals and writing the songs, there's a big argument between Cozy and Michael. And Michael, he got Michael in tears. He said, "This fucking shit." He thought Michael was taking the wrong direction with some of the songs or something. Anyway, he just went berserk on Michael, and Michael goes, "I can't take it anymore. No, I can't take it anymore, Cozy. No, stop. I don't want to play." So Cozy was gone. And then, of course, Chris Glenn, being a friend of Ted McKenna from bands they've been in together, brought in Ted McKenna. And Ted was the player that was a perfect drummer. And, you know, so we made the album with Ted McKenna playing drums. And that's how that kind of came about. But it was by pure accident. I just happened to be there watching this. I might not have gone because I'm not really one of those people who goes to see gigs very often, you know. And Coach just came up and said, "Do you want to be in the band?" You know, that was kind of it.
Now, what happened in that concert when you left the band? What happened? Tell me the story.
Oh, you know it, don't you?
I want to hear your version.
Yeah, well, it was a very big mistake. It was probably the worst day of my life, I think. Well, we got there and Whitesnake were opening for us, and and we went to the pub, me and Whitesnake, while everybody else was doing whatever they were doing. But I was the only one from the band that was in the pub with Whitesnake, and we got a bit shit-faced. And it was a bit, and I was going to buy the next 200 rounds of beer or whatever, but I didn't have my wallet with me. So I went back to the theatre, to the dressing room, and knocked on the door, and Michael was in there, and the door was locked. I couldn't get in, because I knew my wallet was in my jacket. And I said, Michael, can you let me in, please? He said, no, go away, I'm sleeping. I said, Mike, I want my wallet. I'm over with the guys at the pub. He said, no, go away. And that was it. I knocked again. I want my wallet. Okay. So I went back, and the drinks were still coming in like fucking, Niagara Falls, you know what I mean? So it was, by the time I left there, I didn't know where I was, basically. I was just, just so twilight. I was nowhere. He's a real nowhere man, And it just got worse, because I'd written out every fucking song to the early albums that Michael did with the other singer, and I'd written out all these songs that I didn't know from the early albums, and then I'd had all these other songs on paper written out for the new album we just done, the Assault Attack album. But it's all new to me, the album was brand new. This was our first freaking gig, and I had to sing these songs that Gary had written. There were like 4 or 5 that people knew, and they're all there, and they're on the floor, on the stage. It was like fucking wallpaper, It was like a carpet, And the monitors were at the front of the stage, and the audience pushed forward, and all the papers went crunch, and everything was gone. I couldn't see a damn song. It was all screwed up, and it was all a mess. And I go, you fucking cunt. By this time, I didn't care what I fucking said, And I said, yeah. I think we started some song or other, and the audience would go, yeah, fuck you. There's all that fuck you stuff going on. I'm swearing back at them, they're swearing back at me. And I went, oh, fuck you. And I walked off stage, and as I was walking off, the guy, the guitar tech, in fact, was behind this curtain. He used to play rhythm guitar behind Michael's solos. And I had the mic in my hand. I said, this is the guy that plays all the stuff with Michael. It's not just him. Whatever. I said something stupid like that. And I said, well, anyway, fuck you lot. No, I'm going now. So one of the crew said to me, Graham, you better get the fuck out of here. They're going to fucking kill you. So I got out of this place, and went to the hotel. And he said, you better get a plane back to LA. I said, oh, okay. So a plane was arranged, and I got back to LA. To London, I should say. And it was, I remember arriving at King's Cross Station. We had a major gig coming up. It was some festival or other. I can't remember what it was now. But anyway, we were headlining the Michael Schenker thing. And my manager was there at King's Cross Station in London. He said to me, are you all right, Graham? I said, no, I fucked up. I said, I really fucked up royally. I said, I'll be okay for the show coming up. He said, no, you won't. I said, why? He said, they fired you. You're fired. I said, oh, fuck. I said, well, I expected that. Then I got a plane back to LA, and I went back to LA. And that was the end of my career with Michael Schenker.
What was your favorite song off the Assault Attack album? Was there one song that really stood out to you?
Well, I like Assault Attack. I like Dancer, that song called Dancer. And Desert Song is one of my favourites. I like quite a few of them, actually, but those 3 sort of stick out in my mind, I think. But the album, I can listen to those songs now, and I think they're pretty good. They're not bad, Because I remember writing that stuff and thinking, oh, God, I hope this is good enough, Because I wasn't quite sure what to write, because when I was with Rainbow, Roger Glover wrote all the words, and I sort of ad-libbed a melody around Roger's words. He gave me a basic idea about a song, how it should go, and he'd say, okay, Graham, now do that your way, take that wherever. So I'd never written words and melody before. So that was a bit of a stress for me. But I did it. I did okay. And the album did very well, you know.
Now, you said earlier to me that you're working on new music.
What's that, sorry?
You said you were working on new music. You said you guys are working on new music?
Now?
Yeah. So what?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'm doing something right now. That's what I've been doing for the past few days. Along with having appointments at the fucking doctor and the dentist yesterday. I've been so all over the damn place. That's why we didn't get ready to get together. I'm doing all these stupid things that sort of, well, not stupid things, but real life, you know. Because this album's got to be written, and the reason I got in touch with Russ Ballard a couple of days ago is because we need something like, you know, a solid piece that we can just play instead of having to go, what we're going to write next. I've written two. I've got 2 songs down, but we need an album for, you know. So this is the 3rd one I'm on right now. So I'm just getting that together. But our guitar player is going off to make money for himself. He's driving Uber and stuff like that, you know, because we don't make much money gigging. It's not like it used to be.
Right.
We're not playing arenas. We're playing clubs, rock clubs, you know, sort of, and festivals, you know. So that's what's happening right now. I mean, I've got a lot of ideas that I haven't played to him yet, you know. I've got more ideas about upcoming songs than he has, I think. Because, you know, I'm not knocking him for being a guitar player. He can't help that. But guitar players get stuck in that riff thing. And you go, no, well, forget the riff. What about the fucking song? What about substance? You know, it's like when, like Gary Moore is one of my favourite guitar players. He was just amazing. And, you know, he just, like the songs he wrote, just that beautiful guitar playing. It's just, anyway, it's a whole arrangement. It's not just, which is what most guitar players do. You know, so distortion and loud. You know, Smoke on the Water, which was taken from a samba song, which was the original, and it's Smoke on the freaking Water, for Christ's sake. But Richie puts the, you know, distortion in there, you know, and that's what a lot of guitar players do. They don't think about, well, what about building a song that says something, you know, and goes somewhere, and has an interesting story and an interesting guitar part, not just a guitar part for the sake, oh, here comes a guitar solo. It's a bit like jumping Ringo's track for me sometimes. Oh, here comes the Ringo's track. Oh, fucking hell. We won't play that one. You know, Ringo's track. It's called, I want to be all over, baby. You know, whatever. It's a bit like that for me. When guitar solo comes up, I go, not too long, please. You know, make it melodic or something. So he's got the right idea, but sometimes it's just, he plugs his shit in and hears all this, you know, this nasty sound, which guitar players love, you know. But the song, there's no song there, you know,
right?
Which Michael never did. Michael always had a pretty clean guitar in rehearsal and stuff, and you knew where he was going, or not. He would keep, you know, it goes different. Then, I like that. That's happening. That's really good. Like he did with that song Dancer. It's all kind of sweet at the beginning. Then it comes a little bit hard. Then it gets to the chorus, and it's like full on, you know, whatever. And Assault Attack, that was a complete. He just had all these different ideas that don't necessarily go in a straight line, you know. A bit like Steve Vai. When we did an album with Steve Vai, that's my favourite Alcatrazz album.
Why is that?
Steve Vai, you know, take a left turn. Don't go straight ahead. Take a left or a right turn. Or somewhere down the middle. You know, so there's another section coming up, so it keeps the people who are listening interested. You know, where's this going to go? Ooh, you know, like I used to listen to Penny Lane, there is nobody. You know, the story of Penny Lane. It's like, oh, then you listen to it again. Oh, that's what happened. There's a story there. You know, not just the words and the music, but also the way the chords go. And that's what Steve Vai does. He's excellent at putting some chord arrangements together, guitar arrangements.
Now I want to ask you something. You told me a great story about MS when you were with MSG. You told me a great story about the hair, about Rainbow. Tell me a great story about your time with Alcatrazz.
a great story.
You told me some great stuff. The story with MSG was great, and the hair story of Black. Tell me a story about Alcatrazz.
Yeah. Well, the night we fired Ingve, how about that? we were playing somewhere or other, wherever it was, it didn't really matter, but nobody was very happy with Ingve, the way he was going. His ego was getting just over the fucking top. He was a young man who wanted to show the world how great he was, which I understood. But sometimes I'd be doing my bit, a vocal on a verse or whatever the hell, and he would be standing there going, not really listening to what is going on from here, And the band was saying, why is he doing that? Well, I said, well, he's taller than me, for one thing. He can stand there and look, more majestic. Ingve's about that much taller than me, So that was happening. And so anyway, one day we're playing this place, and it was time for Ingve's guitar solo. So I thought, well, this is going to take about 5-10 minutes or something like that. So I thought, well, I'll go back to the bus and talk to the bus driver for a bit, And so I went back to the bus. I got outside and I was talking to the bus driver's called Randy. I'll never forget. I was talking to Randy. I was saying, how's your son? Because I'm epileptic, and so was Randy's son. So we always, and Randy's son, who was about 12 or something, used to come on the road with us. And I was talking about something like that. I was saying, yeah, well, he's a grand mal, because, I've been epileptic since I was found out when I was about 20, I think. And anyway, we were just talking away about stuff like that. And he was just saying, how's it going, Graham? I said, it's going pretty well. Ingve's doing his guitar solo right now. Then suddenly, through the back door, comes Ringo. Or Ringo. Comes Ingve. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? Comes Ingve. He comes running out. And I go, what is it? And he comes up to me, takes his thumbs, and starts thumbing my throat like this, pushing on my vocal cords and on my throat. From the front, you fucking bastard. He was trying to kill me, basically. He said, you pulled out my guitar cord. I said, what? No, I didn't. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? You're doing your solo. That would ruin this whole show. Because I wouldn't do it. And he pressed it harder and harder until I could hardly breathe. He wanted to, ruin my throat, basically. And we had a big Yugoslavian roadie who died, unfortunately, a few years ago, about 20 years ago. It was a great, great guy. He saved me, basically. He came up to Ingve, got him by the head, put his arm like this around his head. You touch Glenn again, I'm going to fucking kill you. He said, oh, God, all right, man, don't. I said, do it harder. I can hurt you more than that, Because he was really muscly. He was like a fucking wrestler, this guy, And he said, no. And so Ingve got up. He said, Ingve, I did not do anything to ruin your piece. Not at all. I wouldn't do that. So in the bus that night, everybody looks around at each other and says, he's got to go. And so that night we fired him, because you don't do that to the singer. You don't try and do it.
That's awesome. We got to go soon. I have one final question I always ask my guests. You've had an amazing career, and you're still out there. You're making music. When you look back on your career, what are a few things that make you proud? What makes you proud about your career? Because you should have pride, because you've had a great career. But what makes you proud?
God. When I was a kid, when I was 11 or whatever, and I'd be doing concerts around wherever, and my mum and dad always encouraged me, but I said to them, please, don't ever come, don't come, you'll put me off. And they used to come to all the shows I did, and I didn't know. And one night I saw them walk in, and I said to myself, I've got to sing good for Mum and Dad. And I stood up, played my guitar, sang, and I was very proud of myself that I could actually sing in front of my Mum and Dad without croaking. which later, as I said, I was frightened of fucking up on an audition for Rainbow. And so I was very proud of that. And then when Castle Donington came around, Monsters of Rock show, my mum and dad were there, my brother, my nieces and nephews. I remember standing on that stage in front of 100,000 people and coming out there and making them cry, making them feel good about, that's my little boy up there, says my mum. That's my little lad. And there he is in the middle of that stage, singing his heart out. And my brother was singing along with me, bless him, dear Tony. Yeah, I lost my brother a few years ago. Alzheimer's. And but he was the one that introduced me to rock and roll, my brother Tony. He used to bring home records after work, Little Richard records and all that kind of stuff. But that was a very proud moment for me. And to hear that roar of that audience, it was just like a jet plane landing. I'd never done anything like that before. And little Graham from Skegness, Lincolnshire, was standing there. My mum and dad down there, my brother and his wife. Oh, and then next morning I saw them, what do you think? And my mum started crying. She said, yeah, that was great, Graham.
That's awesome, Grant. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Now you're starting the tour in the UK starts in October, right?
Yeah,
okay.
That's right. I'm going to play my hometown. We're trying to get together some of the Bonnet family, all my cousins, uncles and aunties and grandmas and granddads. We're going to have a night of the bonnets, the hats. The Hat family. So I've been in touch. We've got like a bonnet club going. So I'm getting all these photographs sent to me by my cousins of us when we were young and all kinds of shit. So I want them all to come to do a little show in a little place in my hometown, which is called the Sun Castle. And it used to be a tea room years ago. And to play there again. We played there twice, actually. I did a show from my family about 5-6 years ago as well. And they all turned up. But this one, I want them all to wear a thing. Hello, my name is, whatever bonnet. They all wear it. And I wear one too. Hello, my name is Graham Bonnet. I want them all to be there to enjoy this and probably have a dinner the night before. You know what I mean? To make it a whole thing for my cousins. And for the people I haven't met yet, my cousins' kids. And their kids, etc., Because now they're granddads and grandmas like I'm a granddad, It's going to be great. So... And I'm looking forward to those shows because we've been playing some pretty good places, I think. And I always look forward to that because I do get to see some of my old friends in London, and I look forward to that. I hate being off the road, to be honest with you. I like recording, but it's just getting the songs together. That takes a lot of work.
So people go check out and go on the Facebook, Graham Bonnet, look him up. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 1,040 episodes. You can email me at coopertalk.net. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.